definitely pick up some sort of cleaner. PBW, this is a little, I think 4 pounds, and it's quite expensive, but it works the best if you want to have anything soak. Oh, it's 1 pound. If you want anything to soak, try to get at least the 4 to 8 pound or 10 pound version of this. This is another company called One Step. You do have to rinse it a little bit more than the PBW. Basically does the same thing as this. Then there is something I haven't tried yet, but the Versatile Free OxyClean, and I have the TSP, I believe it is, which is an additive I can add to OxyClean to basically make PBW that everyone's going crazy over. This is a bargain version of PBW. If you can get PBW, I would. If not, OxyClean Free with the green top is the way to go. Next thing, I'm running a little low on this, as you can see, but it's lasting me forever. Star Sand. I leave a big bucket of it, 5-gallon bucket. It lasts for months and months and months, even if it looks cloudy. I have a pH meter, which is another thing I said to get, that I'll go into later on, but you test with your pH meter, and as long as it's below 3 pH, you're good to go. Another one that I've used in the past is called SaniClean. I called 5 Star and asked them about the differences. They just basically said that you need to rinse this. They also said it has the same ingredients. It doesn't actually sanitize like what they say Star Sand does, and you have to rinse it. But that's what they have to claim. They said it's literally the same thing as the Star Sand. They use it the same way. It's not the same exact ingredients, but they use it the same way. They mix it up, they add it to and swish it around and sanitize. They say it needs to sit a little bit longer. It's not as potent as Star Sand, but instead of 2 minutes resting on the surface, you do 4 or 5 minutes. If you could find this or this, Star Sand or SaniClean or Iota 4, those are all great sanitizing solutions. Moving on, let's go to the pH meter. This came with my Lamont water test kit. You don't need the water test kit. If you get your water from an RO filter, you already know there's nothing in it. But this is good to test in the mash, in the bucket, in your finished beer. You want the proper pH. Nothing's worse than not knowing and not being able to control every aspect of your brew day. This tracer from Lamont works great. I've picked up my storage solution, my number 7 and number 4 calibrating solutions, and I do that once every couple of months just to make sure I remember. And on the unit itself has 2 little circles that show up. If it gets out of calibration, it'll actually disappear one of those, and you can go ahead and recalibrate. Another nice thing to have, as you can see here, I have hydrometers. These are the plastic versions. I use these. You're holding it wrong anyway. You have to hold it by the bulb. These are made by Fermenter's Favorites. These are plastic. They won't break. This is the one that is for low gravity, as you can see. I test all my beers with this. Then I basically use the one that goes from 1 to 170 or 1070 for testing the normal gravity in the fermenter. And I have a nice plastic I don't even know what that's called. It's basically a flask, I guess, or something along those lines that you put the wort in. To go along with that, I use a Thief. Let me see if I can get this out there. What this basically does is you go up and down in the wort. There's a little stopper at the bottom. It will allow the liquid to go into this, and you can put your hydrometer inside there, but it is a little tight. What you do is you just lean this down in your you in your vessel and push down. It'll basically let everything out through the bottom, and then you could test. That's great to have. People ask all the time, how do you actually test your wort while it's in the fermenter? I usually, if it's not a hoppy beer, I just open up the top, use the thief after sanitizing it, put it into this cylinder and test it. I also use a tilt. As you can see, it's in this bad boy down here, my cider, and it connects to an old iPhone that I have that's just running off of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and I get an update every 15 minutes onto my Google Sheets what exactly is going on inside this bad boy. That's a great buy. I love that. It works amazing. I wouldn't give it up for the world. Another thing to test that you don't actually need, but it's very, very handy. I hate having to go from, pre-boiled gravity of like a 10, checking gravity if I'm a 170 degree wort or 200 degree wort, or waiting for it to chill down and then testing it to see if I hit my points. 3 drops of wort on here, and you can test the specific gravity. Let me see if I can get in there. Check the specific gravity from 10 to 1120. It's at 20 degrees C. That's what it's calibrated for. Usually it's calibrated in bricks. It's more accurate. But I calibrate this with some distilled water every couple of brews to make sure it's right. So to get onto the calibration, this is calibrated. These, I put in the same distilled water, they're actually 3 points low. So instead of a 1, it shows a 100, it shows 997. So I have to remember when I use those hydrometers, it's going to be 3 points low. So if I'm looking for a 1050 and I hit a 1047, it's actually a 1050. I just have to remind myself, and I can't move those little pieces of paper in there or whatever. You just have to calibrate them and remember what they are. Whereas this unit, I can just take the top off, calibrate it myself with a little screwdriver that they include, and I'm done. Now for after fermentation, you can still use a refractometer, but you have to plug it into a calculator or some sort of equation to compensate for the alcohol that's present. It is very reliable. It comes out every time, as long as I remember what is the Brix or the Play-Doh or the specific gravity of the original, and that's where keeping notes is great. Speaking about keeping notes, Brewer's Friend. Brewer's Friend has a subscription. They just came out with their app. Brewer's Friend is what I use every single time. Water, everything. And I get these nice printouts of what I need. I also link on my beer bottles at my whenever I put something on there, I'm not putting the whole recipe. I just put a QR code to this printout of the recipe, and people can see exactly what it is. That's a great feature. It's not that much money to subscribe per year, and you get unlimited amount of recipe formulations. You don't have to, only have 5, and you're good to go. The last thing I would say, last 2 things to control fermentation is an Inkbird. This is the 308 with the NCT and 12-inch sensor. This box actually has the 12-inch sensor inside of it. I'm still using the small one, but as you can see on my fermentation chamber, I have the Inkbird. It runs over, goes down to a probe that's in here. That's just hanging in there. I could put in some water or sanitizer, but right now I'm carving up a wet, and I'm keeping all my yeast in there. See, open up the door, it came right on. That's another great feature. It does heating and cooling, as opposed to this Johnson Controls one, which you have to select inside if you want the plug to be heating or cooling. You take it all apart. And the last thing, after fermentation or during fermentation, you want to top crop that yeast. go and buy yourself a nice case of 1 quart ball jars or 1 liter ball jars, and maybe even get a case of the larger ones, like the half-gallon, the 2 quarts. The reason why you want to do that is because when you top crop, you can just put it right inside here, fill it up with distilled water, and you're good to go. But if you miss that time frame from top cropping, what you can do is rack your beer, put about half a gallon of distilled water into your yeast cake, shake it up real good, or not shake it, but stir it up real good, gently, and then pour it into 2 half-gallon mason jars. Let it sit for about 20 to 30 minutes. Pour that liquid out into another 2 mason jars. To get the trub off, you should end up with a little bit more than 1 half-gallon ball jar. Then you let that sit for a half an hour, then pour that liquid off. Then you're going to basically have a cloudy liquid in one big ball jar, and then when you're done, you can pour it into the quart-sized jar and top it off with distilled water, and you can have a fresh yeast cake like I did here from my lager yeast. I have 3 quart-size jars with a half an inch of all white, nice yeast. So that's awesome. Look at that. And that's just from 1 beer. 5 gallons. Here's another one. This one's a little bit more debris inside there, if you could see. It's a little speckled. But that'll keep for several months, up to 6 months, in there. As long as you keep it at close to 36 degrees, you should be fine. So that's what I would say to get. If anyone is selling this stuff on a deal, definitely always pick up your cleaning stuff around this time. Plus, with the free shipping, it works out great. Pick up your 10 pounds of grain from more beer with free shipping on every 10 pounds, or whatever they do. Sacks of grain, and they charge you for shipping. You could take a sack of grain and split it into 5 10-pounders, and it's free shipping. Kind of weird, but it works. Fermentation-wise, you definitely want some sort of temperature control if you can have the room, or at the very minimal, you want to know what's going on inside. Get yourself one of the tilts, and make sure you get a pH meter. That will definitely help your brew day out a lot. Alright guys, that's my list for you, and I'll post it down below.